On the other hand, a week after Will Levis throws the game away while in the grasp, throwing a pick six in week one, we got head coach Brian Callahan talking about one of the decisions Will Levis made yesterday.
What did you say to Will on the fumble? I know you looked very upset on the sideline.
I think the camera caught it pretty clear, if I had to guess. So, I was upset. It was dumb. It was the same exact thing he did last week, and he cost us points in the red zone. And that is what it is. He's a grown-up, and he knows better. And so, I was really irritated that he cost us 3 points in a game that we probably needed it.
Yeah, it couldn't have been more perfect that the camera then cut to him, and you did get a good read of exactly what he said to Will Levis. We were saying before we came on, Callahan there says the exact same thing he did last week. It's actually not. And critically, there were two ways that he could have made it worse last week, right? The only two ways that the play he did a week ago could have been worse were if it was in the red zone, and if he, instead of throwing it forwards, where if it's not caught, it's incomplete, if you throw it backwards so that whatever happens, it's live. He managed to do both of those on this play. That is impressive. Like, after a week, last week, where, okay, you did this twice. It was crazy both times. Come on now. You know better than that. Let's rein it in. He found the only two ways possible to make a worse play and did it right in front of his coach.
It's just massive plays, man. These are, and it wasn't the only stuff that happened with Levis. He also had, so that play is just, how do you keep doing that?
I mean, that's just
how do you do it again? Because that they talked about it this week. They sat down. Will, just take care of it. Just live to play another day. And then situational football-wise, when you're in the red zone, you're literally taking 3 points off. If they're in the deep in the red zone, you're literally taking, a likely 3 points off the board in that situation.
Yeah.
Throwing the ball back.
It was just an absolute maniac play of the Will Levis archetype. The thing is, so the pocket is slightly collapsing in on him, right? But like last week, remember we were talking about his pocket movement is so, over the top. There's a little bit of pressure coming from the right side, and he just violently lurches in the opposite direction, way more than you need to, right? And that's what's causing him problems as much as anything else. It's like his own overreaction to what's happening around him. So this one, the pocket is collapsing around in on him, and then the gap between left tackle and left guard actually opens up quite nicely for him to escape and make a play. And when you watch the TV view, you're like, oh, it's actually a really tight thing. It sort of trips him on his way out. But it wasn't. It was like a big gap. Only his movement away from the pressure caused him to trip himself over his left tackle. And that's how he ends up, now I'm going to be horizontal here and fall over. And that's where he decides, the best course of action to avoid falling over here is to lateral the ball to the running back while I'm horizontal in midair. But again, it's like he's the architect of his own demise. If he just didn't overreact to the pressure, he could have actually escaped through the wide open B gap and been able to have a positive play, or at least a play where he was actually relatively comfortable in open space to make a decision.
The other part that I found funny, because we've always made the Jameis comp for Will Levis. What is Jameis? The peak of volatility, both good and bad. The peak of my favorite Jameis game, one of the maybe the favorite segments we've ever done together, working together, was the back-to-back weeks where Jameis threw passes while falling over. Right? I mean, it's kind of like this Levis thing.
Yeah.
Now, Jameis had a balancing act to what he did. So in back-to-back weeks, I think it was 2021, he had a touchdown pass while falling over. He was falling backwards. He threw it up and threw a touchdown. And then it was either before that or after that, he had another pass where he was falling backwards and he threw a terrible pick in the red zone. And it's like, wow, it evened out. Levis had the evening out effect yesterday as well, because he throws an interception where he chucks it out single coverage with a safety over the top, basically chucks it up into double coverage, has an interception, but he also had a touchdown to Calvin Ridley that put the Titans back to tie the game at 17 into double coverage, right? Single coverage with the safety over the top.
I still don't understand how that got through, by the way.
Yeah, I mean, statistically, it's going to look like Sauce Gardner's worst game of his career, I believe, because he was in coverage on that play to Ridley. I had no idea how it got through either, but it was not that much different. So that the interception was the same exact play, very similar play, as the touchdown. The interception gets picked, obviously, and the touchdown somehow sneaks through to Calvin Ridley. It's like the Seinfeld episode where Seinfeld, he always balances out, he evens out. This was Levis, his 2 throws into double coverage, 1 pick, 1 big touchdown.
Like, I thought that was picked off, and then it was when like, hang on, Ridley came
Ridley's
up with that
up there,
ball. What the
gets
hell?
up
How did
there
that happen?
Celebrating.
I do wonder. So the analysis is always so outcome based, right? Like, obviously from a process standpoint, falling over and launching the ball backwards in the red zone is generally a catastrophic play. I do kind of wonder what the reaction would be if he'd completed it, right? If that ball was 2 feet higher and it actually got through to the running back, and it was, the running back would have been tackled pretty much immediately. It wouldn't have gone anywhere. But I do wonder if he makes that happen, what is the analysis of Levis on that play? Do we just brush over it and say, wow, that was a little bit risky,
No.
but we move on? Or are we still losing our minds? Because
Go ahead.
Because with a lot of these quarterbacks, with Caleb Williams, with Josh Allen, with Patrick Mahomes, they're all operating outside of the conventional norm now, right? Like, they're all going full Brett Favre in terms of none of this is how we teach it. And what it comes down to is, what is your balance on these plays? Like, how many of them are you making versus screwing up is effectively what we're talking about here. For Mahomes, the ratio is like so far in the positive that you basically just say, it doesn't matter. Like, who cares? Every now and again, you're going to make a mistake, and we'll live with it because you're the best quarterback we've ever seen. Josh Allen is similarly in that, albeit a little bit more extreme. Josh Allen makes a lot of mistakes, but he makes so many positive plays that you just be like, whatever. And actually, the first year or so of Josh Allen looks a lot like Will Levis here, where it's like maniac plays. Like, what are you doing? And he found the balance. Like, he found enough positive plays to offset the negative. And to be fair, he's reined in the negative that aren't quite as crazy as they used to be. But it's all about the balance, right? Right now, Levis, the balance is almost all negative. Like, you're making almost none of these plays. Therefore, you need to stop making them. But if that's like, is it possible to improve his ratio of success to failure on the maniac plays? Or do you have to try and get the maniac out of him?
So I'm of the mind. By the way, he also had, his best throw was 3rd and 10 in the third quarter, puts the ball on Calvin Ridley's hands down the field, and Ridley dropped it. That should have been about a 45, 50-yard gain. That was his best throw of the game. Ridley makes up for it with the other touchdown. I'm of the mind that the result of the play kind of matters.
Well, it has to.
In those situations, right? So, like, when Mahomes makes a great throwaway, or a player, does this incredible thing to save a 10-yard sack and they throw it away, to me, those are all calculated risks. And at the end of the day, you give credit or blame for the calculation, right? So, like, we'll talk about Caleb Williams in about 3 hours. I feel like Caleb Williams is not calculating his NFL game speed right now. So when he's, juking and dancing around the pocket and doing all this stuff, he's not getting away with it because he's not making that calculation right now. Where Mahomes is the greatest, mental calculator of, I need 6 yards, I'm going to get 6, run just fast enough, I'm going to do just enough so that my knee doesn't hit and I'm going to throw it away, and I know where, and I've got spatial awareness and I know where people are. So I'm of the mind they're all calculated risk, and you do judge the results through the way we used to at PFF from a grading standpoint. If you throw it right to the defender and he drops it, the result isn't incomplete. The result is, turnover worthy, bad play. So that's where Levis is missing on some of these plays.
But the difficulty, I think, at the moment, so from a coaching point of view, is all of this is outside of the norm of coaching. It's like it's independent of what you're being taught to do in a given play. Like, we talk about with Shanahan and Brock Purdy a lot, right? There's the structure of the offense, and then there's what happens when the offense breaks down, and that's basically all on the quarterback. Like, that's when he takes over. He's now the field general, and the coach is like a passenger on those plays, right? When it reaches a certain point, now the quarterback is driving the train, and you just have to sit back and hope he doesn't drive it off a cliff. That the problem is with all these quarterbacks, that this is the world we're in when they're in charge and the coach just has to wait and judge the outcome. So when you're the coach and you have one of these quarterbacks, I'm not sure what the strategy is, because obviously they need to get better on these plays, because right now the results for Levis are almost all negative, right? But because they're all outside of like your realm, like none of these are what Brian Callahan is drawing up, right? So how does he actually improve the ratio of success to failure? Can you like coach Levis to get better at the maniac plays, or do you have to try and get him to stop doing maniac plays? That's effectively my question.
I think there's a difference between, like I joked about the two heaves into double coverage, one pick, one touchdown. Keep going with those. I mean, stay with the aggressiveness
because
there.
Allen has at least one of those plays on his tape as well. I remember a play where Allen, again, into double coverage, it looked intercepted, and somehow the ball got through, and it's like, oh, that's actually, it ends up a great play, right? Genuinely, rookie Josh Allen looked quite a lot like Will Levis. And obviously, like, Allen is going to be, everyone looking for the next Josh Allen, you're never going to find it. But right down to Wyoming tape is a mess. Giant physical tools, huge arm, big bodied guy.
Both had a better second to last year in college than final year.
And then rookie year is full of maniac plays that are absolutely ridiculous. And Allen pulled himself out of it, improved the ratio, got better, more successful at them, massively increased the number of positive plays he made, and generally increased his overall baseline of efficiency, et cetera, et cetera. I don't think you can look for the next Josh Allen. It's just not, you're not going to find, he's an outlier. That's not the normal pathway to anything. But if you were envisaging Levis becoming successful, the parallels with Josh Allen would be remarkable. Like if he did end up becoming a good NFL quarterback. So again, it's like, how do you, if you're Brian Callahan now and you're looking at this, right? We're in tape study this week. We've got 2 weeks of this where arguably the Titans should be 2-0 and Will Levis individually is responsible for that not being the case. But you're like,
I mean, maybe not in this game. I mean, they still could have lost this game.
It's a big part of it.
Certainly
Anyway,
in week 1.
Point being, I don't know what you do to that, because I don't think, like, I think if your approach to Josh Allen had been, I need you to stop making these plays, you're no longer dealing with Josh Allen. You're dealing with a completely different quarterback who doesn't make as many big plays because you've taken away his instinct to improvise and to do spectacular things. I don't know if you just have to look at Levis and say, until you pull yourself out of this, you can't play at this level.
I would just stop making the Josh Allen comparison, because his special, even early on, I think it was at a different level.
Okay, but
he had it in whatever.
We've comped him to Jameis. Use Jameis as an example.
It's closer to Jameis. And
the balance for Jameis was the same, right? It's like eventually they just gave up and said, okay, the balance is too negative. You're no longer a starting quarterback. But that's what it's. My point being, it's all on the quarterback. Like the coach is basically just, I don't know what to do with this. None of this is my wheelhouse.
Yeah, I think you try to the late in the down plays, you try to rein in the general, like, hey, maybe this is a bit of a risky downfield throw. I think you want to keep that aggressive.